Hey, Greg here. In this video, I'll talk about my last week in Alaska and my trip back to Canada. So, I don't like Anchorage. This is probably mostly due to personal bias. The night I got there, it was really dark and rainy and I couldn't find a place to sleep. I ended up spending that night basically on the side of the highway, so I got off to a bad start in Anchorage. But even the next day, driving around and visiting places, I really just didn't get a good vibe from it. So I decided I didn't want to spend any more time in Anchorage. So the next few nights I spent just north of Anchorage in Eagle River. I much prefer northern Alaska to southern, and because of that, I decided not to go any farther south in Alaska. I was considering going to Homer, but instead I decided I would just take my time on the Glen Highway back to Canada. This was a great drive and I saw some beautiful sights along the way. I camped in a few spots along that highway. In the first camp spot, I met an older guy who was fishing at the river there. He was from Alberta too. We ended up spending the whole day fishing together and then sat around the campfire all night. Over the next few days, I went on some little hour-long hikes and basically just spent a lot of time around the fire. I was having so much fun camping and relaxing that I ended up spending way more time than I intended to on this highway, and because of that, I didn't have time to do the top of the world highway up to Dawson City. But I was fine with that. I've already been to the real top of the world, or at least pretty close. So I took the Alaska Highway back to Whitehorse. I stopped for gas at Beaver Creek, which is just past the border, and I've gotten so used to prepay gas stations that I actually forgot to go inside and pay. About 10 kilometers down the road, I was stopped by a police officer, and instead of charging me for theft, he just started cracking jokes about how I'm Albertan and how we have all the gas in Alberta and I came up to Yukon just to steal theirs. He told me to go back and settle my bill. I said I was sorry for stealing. He said he was sorry for the trouble. It was very, very Canadian. It made me feel good to be back on home soil again. That's the thing about Alaska. It's far away from the other 49 states, but it still feels very, very American. It's the most Canadian state, but still American. It's kind of like Canada and the US had a baby. Alaskans have a slightly different accent than Western Canadians. Alaskans, like most other Americans, love to hang flags. In Canada, we don't really care too much. Alaska is one of the least populated states, but it's still more populated than all of northern Canada. In Alaska, like the rest of the states, you see a lot more people in army uniforms. And interestingly enough, in Alaska, gas is still more expensive than most of the states, but it's cheaper than in Canada. Alaskans are much better with Canadian geography than the continental United States. Pretty much everyone had heard of Alberta, and some people even knew where it was. And last but not least, Alaska is definitely the friendliest state I have been in. And because of that, I can definitely sense some Canadian influence there. Anyway, this weekend's in Whitehorse, still way up here in the north and loving it. Next up, I'm Northwest Territories bound. So thanks again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I will see you same time, different place next week.